Hey everyone, Ink here. This is going to be my Kefka how-to explainer video because I have him fully tricked out. So this is for Abyss Stratum 6. So I ran with Galuf as my tank. He is 0-3 Setzer because I love FF6 and Kefka. People call him Lettuce Kefka. I call him Winter Kefka. Dude brought a lot of scarves. A lot of scarves. Just in his setup, he prefers triple 108, but I am running a 330 with him. His C50 Power of Destruction boost is great. It boosts his attack and max brave. So yeah, they're all great. For now, I'm running the 330 Power of Destruction, but I could totally see swapping for this 108, 110 in the future when he needs more attack. He does not need it now though. Content with his debuffs and content, he does not need the triple 108 right now, but he will need it absolutely later. And I did give him spheres, so Emperors gives him 10% attack up when he inflicts a debuff, which is great for 6 turns because he's always inflicting debuffs. I gave him Faris because Faris and Fujin. Fujin's is speed, Faris is a 30% poison, but they're auras, so they don't add debuffs. You don't want to add debuffs with Kefka. So yeah, I mean, just focus on maxing his attack. His own sphere is great for him. I just wanted to save it for her realm because I think she wants it more, and he'll be fine with just 10% attack. But yeah, any attack spheres is good. I would avoid max brave spheres unless it's Yuffie's. Yuffie has attack and max brave, so that one works just fine. But yeah, without further ado, let's go ahead and jump into it. All right, so Kefka brings your team magic damage and debuffing, and a lot of it. You can see he starts every wave with his EX debuff on there, which is it's a frame debuff, Sneering Clown, and it lowers enemies' attack, defense, and speed, and it also has a sap effect. And it stacks with his other debuffs. So you can see he used his Light of Judgment. You always want to open with Light of Judgment, I think. He has a lot of uses of it, and basically it drops the enemy's speed by 60%, 70% with Fujin's sphere. It also drops their attack by 80%, their defense by 90%. So it lets your team sort of immediately ramp up and start dealing lots of damage. All in, it's great, and you can see the turn control, right? You will not see enemies having multiple turns on the turn order generally, or they'll be very spaced apart when Kefka's debuffs are up. They are just that crippling from a speed perspective. You can see he's sapping enemies. He's also poisoning them too. So you can see the 2 blips whenever an enemy takes their turn is the sap first. He has the largest sap in the game. He's tied with Ida, but his sap is 20% of his max brave, and you can see how ridiculously high his max brave is. He's basically sapping 5k from all enemies at the starts of their turn. Which is great. You can see how well he does at AoE fights right here, controlling enemy brave, not only with that sap, and there's the poison, not only controlling their brave that way, but also just keeping them completely locked. Havoc Wing hits like a truck. And also now it has 2 dumps, so it's great for when he's batteried up. You can still use it and deal a lot of damage. And it also means that you'll get, so you'll see here that Meteor just changed into Meteor Plus, but I'm just gonna kill him with an HP Plus here. And that HP plus didn't actually count toward his EX recharge. So what you'll see here with Kefka, once it's his turn, you always want to open up with his skill 2. Make sure that you're dropping the light of judgment debuffs. So you can see, watch A's turn, just boom, it's gone. The second turn, now it only has 1. There's Meteor. So even though Kefka's got a lot of high turns, his EX recharges in 1 skill, a use of his Meteor plus, which is you get 1 use of Meteor plus after he uses his EX. And Meteor plus batteries him. So you can see he's at 23k Brave right now. That was all the refund from using Meteor plus. So if you actually just use an HP plus with him after this, his EX will be recharged. So you can get him on 1 skill and 2 HP pluses, basically. Well, 1 skill, an HP plus, and a Meteor plus. And he's got his EX up already, which gives him amazing longevity. If you want, you could do 2 skills to get his EX recharged if you need to. But I think missing out, Meteor plus deals so much damage that you don't want to miss it. It's absolutely great. So many advantages that Kefka brings. Obviously, just crippling the bosses with debuffs, and dealing tons of magic damage as well. His weaknesses are, well, he has basically 1, which is that he has 6 debuffs. So I haven't spoken about Trine yet, and it is very important, but Trine is his skill 1, and it drops HP silence, and it also inflicts blind for 2 turns. So with those 2, first off, Trine's an incredible panic button, but outside of that, that gives him 6 debuffs, which means that he is less compatible with other debuffers. Now, that doesn't mean all debuffers are bad. You can see here, Setzer's a debuffer. He drops the freeze debuff, and it's fine. So you just have to be a little bit more mindful about its usage when you've got that. So Kefka is generally less compatible with tanks because they inflict lock. Many of them do. Galuf is the only one that doesn't, which is why I wanted to bring him here, basically to show how excellent he is with Kefka. He's actually only EX plus 0.3 here. Kefka just sapped so much. But yeah, you can also tell that Kefka deals less damage when there's fewer debuffs on the enemies. So against enemies that cleanse a lot like these guys, it means that his damage may dip for a turn as he reapplies his debuffs. But being that he can reapply debuffs with his EX, it's not so bad at all. Definitely reasonable. As for Kefka's teammates, just check our website. Kefka's infographic at the bottom has a compatibility matrix, basically showing you who works great with Kefka. It's probably about 60% of the cast, or maybe 50% that works great, and then 30% that has minor conflict, and then a much smaller collection of characters that have heavy conflicts, like Emperor and Caius and Sarah. They have 2+ debuffs, and that can be harder to work around, because as soon as a boss resists debuffs, like let's say that the boss resisted lock, like the story chaos, you can use Kefka with Zack, you can use him with Celis, you can use him with Snow, it doesn't matter. Otherwise, they wouldn't really work, because when their lock is applied, it's a frame debuff. It means that when Kefka drops his, when he uses Trine, he can't use Light of Judgment again without pushing off the Trine debuffs. So it means that you have to be a little bit more careful about how you're using Kefka here. Yeah, you can see how Setzer's freeze works differently than HP silence, right? Because the enemy will actually attack they will use their skill, their ability, and try to deal damage to you, and Setzer protects your whole party from that. Kefka, though, he'll actually lock the enemy so that they can't move. They basically will just not be able to take any turns. And here you can see how great Meteor is, right? Dealing 90k. It's basically the same as a skill using a Light of Judgment. So, yeah, I will be trying to run Kefka in as many Chaos battles as I can, but with different teammates. So it should be fun. So consider Setzer and Galuf off the table moving forward. We'll see. Yeah. Again, first thing I want to do is always drop my Light of Judgment debuffs, and A and B only have one turn in that turn order. I mean, you can just see how punishing his debuffs actually are. And yeah, we don't want to get debuffed, so let's summon. Yeah, so for Kefka, just going over his setup a little bit more, you can see how ridiculous his max brave is. His max brave sits at 50k generally, maybe a little bit under that but with supports, I think he's generally going to have the highest max brave. You can see what his debuffs does to the party. It means that the party doesn't have to you don't need as many auras if you don't want them, because all your characters are going to be hitting high damage just because of his ridiculous debuffs. So even though he doesn't bring any party benefit, you can get by with a low aura on your team, and basically just letting Kefka's debuffs enable your party to perform at their best. And yeah, I was mentioning it before, but with 6 debuffs, Kefka's EX buff gives him 10% more brave damage for every debuff on the enemy that he's attacking, which basically means that he can, for an entire fight, sustain 40 to 60% brave damage up. This is going to be great once enemies start to do brave damage reduction. But just in general, it's great because he doesn't need another debuffer to work with him. If you look at characters like Edgar or you look at Cypher, those characters both want, they don't need, but they do better with more debuffers in the party, basically to stack debuffs so that their brave damage gets further increased. But yeah, Kefka, he does not need that whatsoever. Yeah, so just looking here, you can see how close A's turns are. I do want to make sure that Kefka gets another turn, so that's why I check, because I want to, Bahamut here is going to do an all attack, and I want to make sure that I drop the speed debuff. You can see that immediately that we got 2 additional turns in between Bahamut's turns after I used that. Just showcasing how ridiculous that speed is. And yeah, now Bahamut is HP silenced and he's blinded. So if he tries to do an HP attack, he can't. He will get stopped, he will get locked at his all attack. He is going to change target shortly here, because Havoc Wing is going to hit him like a truck. And you can see I go right into Meteor Plus. Kefka's super fast, but it doesn't matter because he just has great longevity. And the other benefit that Kefka has is the fact that he is a pseudo dispeller. So boss just buffed himself with 5 buffs, and yeah, Kefka's ability to easily drop all of his debuffs on the enemy means that we will be able to just get rid of all those buffs too. So it's sort of like a bit of a pseudo roll here. You can see Bahamut is in his all attack now, and there goes Trine again. Trine doubles his brave, so it's good if you're at like 70% brave when you use Trine, because that'll maximize its damage. But you don't have to be there. It's just nice if you are. Dropping Light of Judgment, you can see the 3 Bahamut turns. Boom. He basically lost an entire turn there on the turn order. and he's going to be locked with here for the rest of the match. He can't do anything. And I still have 4 uses of Trine. So, I mean, this can go on forever. Kefka's really, really popular in the next entropy stage also, because he can also lock enemies. He's great in entropy 12. You start to see a pattern of how great Kefka actually is, because he has the HP silence. He's sapping 10k now that he's ramped up. Oh, that is something that I should have mentioned. The sap does the sap from his character board to 20% actually only triggers from his EX debuff, not his wave start debuff. So that's a little bit of an interesting nuance there. But that's why he's sapping the 10k now instead of 5k. I should have mentioned that earlier, but yeah, you can see he's got lots of abilities left, and he's the primary damage dealer here, right? Galuf is 0-3, and Setzer deals what, 40k on his normal attacks, sometimes more when he's red carding, and otherwise maybe 60k with his EX. But what better way to end a Kefka explainer video than with Havoc Wing, Winter Kefka, just taking names. Again, I don't like the term lettuce Kefka. I think it's lazy. Look at all those scarves. Dude's got like 4 scarves. Maybe it's just 2 or 3, but still, it's a lot of scarves. He's Winter Kefka to me. Hope you all found this helpful and enjoyed it. Yeah, look out for more Kefka videos from me. Take care, everyone.